Hi, my name's Phil Calvert. Thank you so much for joining me today for this very special webinar on scorecard marketing. What on earth is scorecard marketing? Well, business professionals around the world are hailing it as an absolute game changer in lead generation. It works for all kinds of different businesses, but it works particularly well in professional services. As someone who has worked with financial advisors for many, many years on their marketing and lead generation, I don't think I've come across anything quite so exciting as scorecard marketing. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend this whole webinar putting it into context, what it is, where it came from, why it works, and how it builds on what you're already doing as a financial advisor. If you've got any questions, please send me a message afterwards and I'll give you a link to do that. But in the meantime, let's not waste any time and get straight on. So let's get stuck in then. Welcome again to our very special webinar, Marketing for Financial Advisors, part of our winter webinar series, where we really put the focus on reinventing how we attract our ideal clients. You know, anyone can attract leads into their business as a financial advisor. The simplest and easiest way to do that is to hire a Facebook advertising expert. And if they get it right, they can literally shovel leads into your business. But I haven't met a single financial advisor who actually wants to do that. What most financial advisors want is high quality, and they want just a few more high quality ideal clients. And that's what we're going to look at today with this really exciting new concept called scorecard marketing. Please do stick around to the end. At the end, I'll give you a link and an email address where you can get hold of a copy of a 28-page guide that I've written about scorecard marketing, which I'm sure you'll find really useful. Now, for those of you that I've not met before, thank you again for joining me today. Just a very quick introduction. I spent 20 years in sales and marketing with large product providers, companies like National Employers Life, Zurich Life, you may recognize. I then did 22 years as an independent sales and marketing consultant. And so, you know, I've got over 40 years experience working with financial advisors, mostly in the UK, but increasingly around the world. 2003, 2004-ish, I created the world's first online networking platform in financial services. I've written a few books. And back in the day, and you know, I'd still love to do it, I used to do rock concert photography. I didn't go to university. Just got my A-levels, went straight out, but my passion was photography. And I used to go to the Hammersmith Odeon. I used to go to the Empire Pool Wembley, as it was named then, the Rainbow Theatre. I particularly loved doing all the heavy rock bands, ZZ Top, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden in the early days. Absolutely loved it. And my claim to fame is that once I was officially the world's best gin and tonic maker. Very, very briefly, the story, I had a family friend taught me how to make a perfect gin and tonic. That family friend's name was John Tanqueray, as in Tanqueray Gordon. So he taught me how to do it, gave me the secret family way of doing it. And I thought, well, I'd love to test this out. And I entered the World Cocktail Making Championships many, many years ago. All the best bar men and women from around the world descended on a hotel in London. I entered the gin and tonic category, and amazingly, absolutely, I won it. So that's my claim to fame. I'm sure one or two of you would rather hear about how to make a great gin and tonic than to hear about scorecard marketing, but perhaps we'll save that one for another day. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about today. First of all, how financial advisor marketing is changing, and in particular, how lead generation is changing. I want to put scorecard marketing into context. The problem with financial advisor websites, and there is a really, really big problem with financial advisor websites, which can be changed so easily, and I'll explain how to do that. The process of building relationships with prospects and why that's important, and how scorecards change everything. Forgive me if I say it's a game changer many times today, but it genuinely is. But I need to explain that, and I will explain that to you as we go forward. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's take you back to 1978. As I said, I took my A-levels. I didn't go to university, didn't go to college. I really fancied myself as a rock concert photographer, but my parents really weren't having any of it at all. I remember one afternoon my dad saying to me, "So, what are you actually going to do for a living?" And I said, "Well, I quite fancy rock concert photography." Now, I could see the look on his face. Health and safety back in 1978 at rock concerts was very different from health and safety today. I just knew that he wasn't comfortable with it. And to put that into context, I saw him sort of raise his eyebrows and said, "No, you're not. You're going to get a proper job." Now, as I said, to put that into context, my dad was a dental surgeon. His brother was a senior consultant surgeon. His other brother was an officer in the guards. His father was the worldwide CEO of the Royal Exchange. My mother was a magistrate, and my mother's dad was an engineer of considerable global repute. So I get what he meant by getting a proper job. And like any teenager at the time, I just sort of ignored him. But a year went by, and finally a day came when I thought, well, maybe I ought to do the proper job thing. And my last outing as a rock concert photographer was to see my favorite band at the time, Blackfoot. They were playing live in London, and they were recording a live album. And the arrow there is actually pointing to me, an 18, 19-year-old me, got my press pass and right up the front there. And I was actually I'm on the cover, on the album cover for that particular live album. So I felt my work had been done. But, if I had the chance today to go back into rock concert photography, I'd love to sneak my way in and do that once again. So the day after this, I went down to the Dorking Job Centre, and I had an interview with a nice lady down there, 10 minutes interview. And after 10 minutes of asking me a few questions, she came back to me with a little report and said, "Mr. Calvert, we think you are cut out for pension scheme administration." Which I had no idea what she meant, but it was a job. And she sent me to an interview at Friends Provident at the bottom of Box Hill in Dorking. And she also sent me to National Employers Life at Milton Court in Dorking as well. National Employers Life, for those of you that are not familiar with it, they were basically a PHI company. They were also a mortgage lender as well. But PHI was their thing. And for those of you that know Unum today, NEL eventually morphed into Unum. And that's where I started life as a pension scheme administrator. And I did that for about 6 months. My boss called me into his office one afternoon and said, "Phil, we really don't think that pension scheme administration is your thing. But what we do think is your thing is sales. We think you ought to go out on the road as an inspector." Many of you may not know that name, but today they are broker reps, broker consultants, business development consultants, whatever. But we were called inspectors back then. And my job was to meet financial advisors and to convince them that National Employers Life's products were the products that they should be promoting to their clients. So I went off to Croydon with my brand new shiny company car, and I was given a patch of basically southwest London, absolutely huge. And there were hundreds, if not, there could have been a couple of thousand financial advisors on my patch. We didn't call you financial advisors back then, we called you brokers, because most financial advisors, as well as doing a bit of life and pensions, also did a bit of motor and general insurance as well. But NEL was a very professional company, and they didn't want me just sort of driving around southwest London, knocking on financial advisors' doors, irritating the hell out of them. We had to do it properly. And we had to have meetings with financial advisors by appointment only. And my target was to see 20 financial advisors every single week. And to cut a long story short, I did that for the next 20 years. As a junior inspector, an inspector, broker consultant, and I eventually left Zurich Life as head of national accounts. But through that entire time, that entire 20-year period, all I did was meet financial advisors. And I literally saw 20 financial advisors every single week for pretty well 20 years. And I still think, even since then, I've probably met more financial advisors than anybody else in the industry, or indeed the profession, as perhaps we call it today. Now, over that time, I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of financial advisor marketing. And one or two of you I know have got my book, Marketing for Financial Advice Professionals, which in many ways is a trip down memory lane, looking at old school marketing techniques that still work today, but modernized, and also very high tech digital techniques as well. And much of the content in that book is based on real meetings with real financial advisors, the ones who really have got their marketing and lead generation right. So, blatant pitch here. If you've not got this book, you'll find it a great read. There's over 400 pages of marketing stuff just for financial advisors in there. Back end of 2020, I finished off another book, which kind of shows my passion for this new approach called Scorecard Marketing, the Financial Advisor's Guide to Attracting Premium Quality Leads with Scorecard Marketing. And whereas the first book is kind of looking back, this new book looks forward, because scorecards are the way forward. And really the purpose of this presentation today is to explain to you why that is and how that's going to come about. So let's ask you a question. There you are in your financial advice business today. You've almost certainly got a website. You almost certainly get referrals, and maybe you do a few other ways to attract leads. But you've got a website because you believe that you should have a website. And so let me ask you a simple question. Would you like to know the names and the financial situation of everyone who visits your website? Would you perhaps like to give a personalized experience to everyone who visits your website? And would you like a website tool that adds massive value to your prospects and to your business proposition as a financial advisor? Now, whenever I ask financial advisors that question, the overwhelming majority say, well, yes, of course I would. I mean, to know the names and financial situation of everyone who visits your website is unheard of. Well, guess what? We can now do that. Yeah. If not everyone who visits your website, the vast majority of people who visit your website. So stick with me and I'm going to explain how that's done. So let's go back to 1978 and put scorecard marketing into context as to why it's important to be looking at right now. If you look at what financial advisors were doing to attract clients back in 1978, it was all of these things, or a combination. Networking, of course, seminars, paper newsletters, good old telephone, cold calling, direct mail, fax was used a lot, leaflet drops, a bit of hospitality. I met quite a few financial advisors who, did their own golf days and things like that. Local sponsorships, sponsoring a local football team. Many actually had their own merch as well. Simple stuff like cups and mugs and diaries, that sort of thing. Many wrote articles in local newspapers and magazines. Local advertising, classified advertising, that was very popular back then. Yes, a few referrals were coming in, but they weren't the main source of new clients back then. And introductions from local professionals, in particular, estate agents. Now, what was really interesting to note was that the vast majority of the activity that financial advisors did to attract clients back in the 70s and the 80s was really, really proactive when compared with today, where the vast majority of financial advisor marketing is very reactive. And you look at 1978, compare it with 2020. Yeah, there's all those proactive activities. You could argue that referrals is actually pretty reactive, but financial advisors were much more proactive about the way they attracted referrals back in 1978. They were actually quite strategic about it. They had a plan for how they do that. And I mention this in pretty well every single presentation I ever do. If you believe that referrals are important to your business, trust me when I tell you, trust me when I tell you, you're actually only scratching the surface of the referrals that you're getting. You may feel that you're doing quite well on referrals, but you're actually only scratching the surface. And by way of proof of that, I invite you to get this book, Get More Referrals Now, written by a guy called Bill Cates, who is the world's leading authority on how to attract referrals and introductions to your business. And Bill specializes in financial advisors. Bill is based in the United States, so the book is a little bit American in tone, but when you adapt it for the UK market, it works extremely well. And he talks a lot about building a referral mindset and having a referral strategy, a formal written down referral strategy. And when you build a referral strategy for your business, it literally transforms how and how often you receive more of the referrals that you actually want in your business. So I strongly recommend go to Amazon, get hold of a copy of Bill's book. He's written several books on referrals, and he's got quite a bit on YouTube as well, but highly recommended. Get More Referrals Now by Bill Cates. So let's go back to the comparison between 1978 and 2020. And on the right, we've got what financial advisors are predominantly doing today to attract leads. Email newsletter, which is arguably a bit more proactive. Referrals, which, as I've just said, is a very reactive activity today. Introductions are pretty reactive as well. Web listings, you know, any of you who are members of Life Talk, my groups on Facebook or LinkedIn, the times that financial advisors say, do you use this company? Do you use this company? How disappointed are you with the leads coming from this company? We used to really rely on this particular web listing service, and now they've fallen off the edge of a cliff. Web listings are really, really reactive, and their shelf life is getting shorter and shorter. Financial advisors got websites, but hardly any financial advisors are getting any kind of meaningful numbers of new inquiries from their websites, and I'm going to explore that in much more depth later on. Social media is just lazy. We've missed the boat. Financial advisors have missed the boat when it comes to social media, with the exception of LinkedIn. And again, I'm just going to explain a bit more about that as we go. So we have the internet now, which we didn't back in 1978. And because we have the internet, we've actually got lazy about how we kind of have a Facebook page, or we've got a LinkedIn page, or we may be using Twitter, or maybe we're using YouTube just a little bit. We kind of use these things and sit back and hope that the business comes in. And yeah, sure, some financial advisors are picking up a little bit of business. But social media has really changed, and I'm going to explain a bit more about that as we go as well. There are some financial advisors who are being much more proactive. Some are using LinkedIn very proactively and finding it really does work. Seminars, I mean, if you were to ask me to pick one lead generation activity for financial advisors that just works time and time again, I would always suggest seminars. When new financial advisors ask me, and come to me and said, how should I generate leads for my business? I would say seminars at the top of the list. But seminars have got their own problems as well, which we'll talk about. Webinars, particularly in the United States, a lot of financial advisors using webinars. I think webinars, the name alone is problematic for a lot of financial advisors. There is the perception that putting on a webinar is a kind of full-on salesy thing. We've all been on webinars, haven't we? Where we've listened to about an hour worth of content and then another hour of sales pitch. That's not what I mean by a webinar for financial advisors. What I mean by webinars for financial advisors is high quality client communication events. And by event, that could be, you could put on your own conference if you want, but it could also equally be a 20-minute client update once a week, once a month, whatever. I've got a separate presentation on webinars. Drop me a line if you'd be interested in that. We're also seeing more and more financial advisors writing books these days, and quite right too. I'm mentoring several financial advisors through writing their own books. Having your own book just says so much about you as a financial advisor, not least of which is your expertise and credibility. But, it's a proactive activity. Podcasts and video blogs as well. We're starting to see more and more of that. Blogs, articles, funnels. I haven't really got time to talk about funnels today, although I will very briefly touch on it later. And good old-fashioned PR. So a lot of financial advisor marketing today is really, really reactive, but the people who are actually cutting it, who are actually doing well with their marketing and lead generation, their marketing is much, much more proactive, and they're using those techniques, those tactics there. One of the problems with financial advisor marketing today, and it's always been a bit like this, is we have this concept of random acts of marketing, which inevitably produces unpredictable results, is not scalable. As I said, it's random, it's pretty ineffective, and it just leads to stress. It leads to more of those comments in the Life Talk forums where people are saying, what do people recommend? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? What's your experience of this? What's your experience of that company? Which just suggests to me that a lot of financial advisors haven't really got a clear, articulated strategy which they are following. And if we just focus on those things alone, we will get much more predictable results. It is scalable. In other words, we can turn it up or turn it down depending on what we need to do at any given moment in time. It needs to be so much more strategic. And when it's strategic, guess what happens? You find that it works. And that doesn't lead to stress. It leads to confidence in your ability to turn up the leads or turn them down depending on what your requirements are at the time. Now, there's been some research done by Michael Kitces in the States, and I do my own research, constantly looking at this. And there are different types of marketing activities for different types of advisors, which actually work. So the top strategies for top performing advisors or advisors who've been around for a while and are doing quite well, top of the list tends to be referrals, writing books, seminars and events, some degree of web listings, introducers and joint ventures, LinkedIn, search engine optimization, a funnel type of website with a lead magnet, and agencies and hiring agencies and consultants. Now, hiring agencies and consultants tends to be the domain of top performing advisors because hiring agencies and consultants tends to be quite expensive. But if you hire the right people, then it's definitely an investment in your business worth considering. Lower risk strategies for new advisors or advisors who may be struggling a bit, not quite sure what to do, businesses perhaps taking a bit of a downturn. These are things which consistently seem to work well. Referrals with a strategy, introducers, joint ventures, good old-fashioned local advertising, in a magazine, in a newspaper, sponsoring a roundabout, that kind of stuff. Web listings work to some extent. I say they work to some extent. That's because they're still perceived as relatively inexpensive, and some advisors say, "Well, I'll take pretty well anything that comes my way," but then they complain. Seminars, webinars, and client events, networking events, LinkedIn, content, and writing books, and some good old-fashioned, old-school, non-digital stuff like sponsoring your kids' local football team football shirts, something like that. All of these things are talked about in my book, Marketing for Financial Advice Professionals. But there it tend to be, and these are in order, the things that seem to work for financial advisors. What you also have is a lot of marketing people will try and convince you that you need to be doing this sort of stuff, and you need to be doing all of it all of the time. There are marketing people out there who will have you believe that this is what we need to be doing. You need to have your own Facebook group. You need to have a podcast. You need to have a YouTube channel. You need to be recording videos all the time. You need to be on Pinterest. You need to be doing LinkedIn, doing your own events, video testimonials, even using tools like, I can't say the name out loud, but your desktop assistant. And this is just absolute nonsense. It's time consuming, it's stressful, and constantly putting out content onto all of these platforms, I believe, actually severely weakens it softens and destroys your professional expertise and your intellectual capital. Why waste it? But the occasional thing, but within the context of a strategy. If your clients are senior executives in businesses, the chances are they will be on LinkedIn. So stick to LinkedIn. Use a couple of channels maybe, but you should know as a financial advisor where your clients hang out. I mean, that's just, in this day and age, if you don't know where your clients hang out, what newspapers they read, what podcasts they like to listen to, where they like to go on holiday, what newspapers they like to read, this is just basic information that financial advisors need to know these days. And if, just to use that one simple example, if your clients are business owners, the senior executives, they are on LinkedIn. So that's where you should be putting your efforts. Again, I've got other training on how to use LinkedIn, but this idea that you should be putting all your best expertise out there all over the place is utter nonsense and really is not sustainable in the long term. What really works these days is focus, data, understanding your client intimately. Yes, intimately. Understand your client, know who they are, be able to describe them in detail. If somebody comes along and said, describe in detail your perfect, ideal dream client, you should be able to do that. Yeah. Where do they go on holiday? What newspapers do they like to read? What sort of schools do they send their kids to? This is information you need to know. And when you know that kind of stuff, then you find your marketing becomes so much easier. Now, if I also, one of the things that I didn't put on that list, which a lot of financial advisors used to do back in the 70s and the 80s, is they used to do regular surveys of their clients on paper back in the day. One or two financial advisors do surveys with their clients today, and they do them on tools like SurveyMonkey, that sort of thing. Why do they do surveys? Because it gives them data, it gives them information. And when you have information, you can act more appropriately to their particular circumstances. So this idea that we can rely on people's addiction to social media is not a strategy. I promise you, it is not a strategy. And let's put some more meat on that. One of the questions I get asked time and time again by financial advisors is, which of these platforms should I be using, Phil? Because our competitors, Jones and Co. down the road, they're using Instagram, so maybe we should give that a go. And Smith and Co. further down the road, they've got a Facebook page. Maybe we should give that a go. And I've noticed another financial advisor competitor down the road, they've got a YouTube channel. Maybe we should give that a go. Guess what? Give that a go is not a strategy. Well, it is a strategy. It's a rubbish strategy, and it will not work. Tweet and hope is not a plan. Social media is nothing to do with technology. It is everything to do with technique. It's how you use it to interact and engage with your dream connections, or indeed your dream prospects. And really, what we've got to get away from is this concept of social media. Back in the day, in 2003, when LinkedIn first appeared, the word social media just didn't exist. It was called social networking. And it was designed to complement and even replace what many financial advisors were actually already doing in the real world. They were going to networking events. And networking events are really, really powerful. And clearly, during a pandemic, networking's not quite as easy as it used to be. But what I'm trying to do here is to put a lot of this into context. When it comes to technology, use technology to interact and engage with people at a human level. One of the things my dad did say to me was people by people. They always have done, and they always will do. And networking is about engaging with other human beings at a human level. Social media is noise. Full stop. It's noise. Social media is about broadcasting. And a little thing here, just a quick tip about LinkedIn. LinkedIn rewards its users for networking with other users. It does not reward people for using it as a broadcasting medium. So, the worst kind of post that you can see on LinkedIn is where someone goes on and they put, check out our latest blog, click here. The LinkedIn algorithm will penalize posts like that. But if you go onto LinkedIn and you find someone else's post and you put, hey, Sue, that's a great post. Thanks for the heads up on that. Really appreciate it. The LinkedIn algorithm is capable of spotting that and rewards you. So although people might describe LinkedIn as a social media site, it's not a social media site, it's a social networking site, and the algorithm is designed to support people who support other people. And that is really important as we go forward. So our reliance on people's addiction to social media is not a strategy, but our reliance on people's need for human connection is a strategy. And I want you to remember that as we get into the section on scorecard marketing, because it is a key reason why scorecards are so powerful. Again, let's continue to put this in context. Let's go back to 2002. We're doing a bit of time travel today. I collect old school marketing. I collect lovely pieces of old school marketing. And this was an absolutely fabulous one in its day. In its day, this advertisement by Bic, the razor people, won many awards in the advertising industry. A really clever idea. They built a billboard. They cut a strip with a razor, allegedly, and as I said, it won all sorts of awards. The only thing was, most people never saw this because they either didn't drive past it or walk past it, or weren't reading the right magazines. Today, if Bic were doing something similar, what they would do is encourage you to engage with it by taking a selfie of yourself in front of it and posting it onto your social media. In other words, they would try and encourage you to do their marketing for them. Really clever piece of marketing by Bic, but you can see the difference between how they did it then and how they might do it today. But even today, even in a pandemic, there is potential for amazing creativity like we've just seen. So look at this here, smileattheworld.com. This is a recent advert on a billboard that they put the best time ever to get braces. Really clever, really creative. So let's just quickly look at traditionally the four most effective forms of lead generation for all types of financial advisors, regardless of whether you're a newbie just getting started or whether you've been doing this for a few years. So the most popular amongst financial advisors is referrals. But as I mentioned earlier, the vast majority of financial advisors are actually only scratching the surface when it comes to referrals, because they do not have a formal written down referral strategy. And I will lay a lot of money that the overwhelming majority of financial advisors watching this presentation today do not have a formal referral strategy, nothing that's actually written down. So you're already getting referrals, great. Though in a minute, I'm going to explain why I think referrals are becoming a slightly creaky model, but you could actually do even better if you have a proper strategy. The single most ineffective form of lead generation for financial advisors is actually their website. And I need to explain why that is, and I'm going to do that as we progress. Almost every financial advisor has got a website. Today's websites look absolutely fantastic, but for the most part, they are online brochures. And financial advisors say to me, we really don't get much through our website. We thought it would. And, a lot of financial advisors have seen having a website as a kind of thing on their things to do list. And they've gone to one of the many great web designers that we have today. They've unveiled their shiny new website to the world, and they've sat back and crossed their arms and said, right, I'm now in the world of e-commerce. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. When you start treating your website as an asset of your business, then your view on your website actually changes overnight. Because most financial advisors, they've got a website sitting there thinking that it's going to do the work, thinking that people are going to come visit your website and they're going to be so impressed by your website, they will naturally want to get in touch. And that just isn't happening for the most part. And I'll explain why that is in a minute, and I'll show you some simple tweaks that you can make to your website that will change that. But I'm including this in here today because a scorecard is also a type of website, but it's a type of website that is so much more effective at lead generation than your current website. The single most effective form of lead generation for financial advisors, hands down, anywhere in the world, and no one will convince me otherwise, is seminars. The vast majority of the most successful financial advisors around the world include seminars or client events in some way as part of their client proposition. It's as simple as that. There are some financial advisors around the world now whose seminars are so effective at attracting people to their business. They've actually stopped doing financial advice. They actually don't do any more financial planning. But what they do is financial education seminars, and they charge people to attend. Why? Because they make more money charging people to attend their seminars than they do from the leads they get at seminars. Yep, it is that profitable. I know one financial advisor in the United States who puts on a quarterly, he calls it a wealth symposium. Okay, it's like a 3-day event. He puts on a quarterly wealth symposium, and he charges $20,000 a ticket. And he has a queue lasting, a waiting list lasting a whole year most of the time. So seminars just work. And I know there'll be some of you thinking here, yeah, well, what if we don't get room? What if I pay for a hotel and people don't turn up? It's just a process. Follow the process. You'll get the right bums on seats. Follow the presentation process that exists, and people will want to come up and talk to you. I know financial advisors who put on seminars regularly, they see conversion rates around the 70 to 80% mark. And by conversion, I mean someone turns up and either on the day or within a week or two afterwards, they talk to the financial advisor and say, I really enjoyed your seminar. What's the next step? How do we become a client? 70 to 80% is not uncommon. And it's just a process. If you want to know the process, get in touch with me and I'll show you how it's done. However, we can't do seminars anymore because there's a pandemic on right now. And so more and more financial advisors are doing the next most obvious thing, which is webinars. And the great thing about a webinar is they cost you nothing to put on. There's no travel. There's no lunch to buy to people. It just works at every single level. So seminars just work, and so do webinars. So that is the single most effective form of lead generation for financial advisors. There is another form of lead generation for financial advisors, which slowly but surely people are waking up to and beginning to realize, I wish I'd paid attention to this earlier, and it is LinkedIn. Okay, LinkedIn is amazing right now. LinkedIn today is like Facebook was 5 to 8 years ago. 5 to 8 years ago, if you were on Facebook, anybody could attract clients. You could post anything onto Facebook and people would want to talk to you. It was that good, and you could do it for free. Facebook now is monetizing. In other words, you need to pay, and it's not a problem. I've got a problem with paying to use Facebook, but you've got to pay to get an advertising expert who can really make it work for you. But LinkedIn today is absolutely amazing. And I know, and I get it, and I see financial advisors saying all the time, I don't get LinkedIn, and too many recruiters want to talk to me on LinkedIn, and all the wrong sort of people want to talk to me on LinkedIn. If the wrong sort of people want to talk to you on LinkedIn, then I'm sorry to say it's your fault. You are positioning yourself incorrectly, and there are mistakes that you're making on LinkedIn that are causing the wrong people to approach you on LinkedIn. If you want your dream ideal clients to approach you, there is a way to make that happen on LinkedIn. But that's not for today's webinar. But I put LinkedIn in there because LinkedIn just works when you know how, follow the process. But I'm also including LinkedIn because LinkedIn is a great source of people to visit your Scorecard website that we're going to talk about as we go. There are also some common expectations that financial advisors have around leads. When I talk to financial advisors one-to-one, more often than not, one of these statements comes up. Our website will produce leads. That's a kind of expectation. The vast majority of financial advisors, they are seeing very few leads coming through their website, if any at all. Something else that financial advisors say, referrals will come automatically. Well, they do to a certain extent, but in a minute I'm going to explain why I think referrals are getting creaky. Local introducers will send leads. Well, they used to. Back in the 70s and 80s and some of the 90s, introducers were just a fantastic source. But once again, I will lay any money that the vast majority of financial advisors watching this presentation right now do not have a formal introduction strategy. So we believe that introducers will send leads, but It's really nothing like the level that they could be. And then when it comes to lead providers, web listings, and I see this one time again, we'd like lead providers to be quick and inexpensive. Well, that's possible, but the quality will be dreadful. And financial advisors say to me, lead providers need to be quick and produce high quality leads. Well, theoretically, that's possible, but they'll be pretty expensive. Lead providers need to be high quality and inexpensive. Well, that's theoretically possible, but you just have to wait quite a long time for that to come through. And so many advisors say to me that operating in a niche market will reduce the number of leads. You read any book on marketing or niche marketing, and the exact opposite is the case. You really, really do need to get a lot more focus on who is my ideal client. Now, some financial advisors, they really do operate in a clear niche. I know a guy called Jared in the United States. He's a financial planner in the United States. His niche market is professional bass fishermen. That's the only type of people he will do financial planning for. I know other financial planners who only work with heart surgeons in West London. That's a niche. I know some financial advisors who only work with people in the police. I know some financial advisors who only work with people who are in the armed forces. So that's a kind of niche. But most financial advisors are quite nervous about doing that because they feel that if I just focus on policemen or accountants, then I'm going to miss out on all the other business. And the exact opposite is the case. At the moment, many financial advisors are like a needle in a haystack. When if you focus on a niche or you focus on a specific area of expertise or need, you become the haystack itself and you become much easier to find. So these are common expectations that we find around leads, which I want to face head on. So marketing is changing, and we really need to be very honest about this. We need to have a good, long, hard look at our business model and to own up and admit that marketing is changing. Okay? And let me explain a bit more about what I mean by that. Many of the traditional, old, faithful marketing activities that I've been talking about either don't work anymore or are seriously running out of steam. When COVID-19 came along, marketing for financial advisors was already changing. It was already evolving. But COVID-19 has dramatically sped up the rate of change. So networking. We can't go to networking events anymore. Seminars that I talk about in gushing terms so much. We can't do seminars anymore. Trade shows. That was another thing that I didn't put on the list at the beginning, but many financial advisors used to go to trade shows, particularly if they did operate in a niche. We can't do those anymore. Web listings and lead providers. Well, if the comments in our Facebook group and our LinkedIn group are anything to go by, the vast majority of financial advisors have kind of lost patience with web listings. The quality, for the most part, has dropped through the floor. I know that there are still one or two financial advisors who are still very pleased with the leads that they get through web listings, and that's absolutely fine. And I hope that continues for you. But the vast majority of financial advisors now are beginning to realize that that is a source of business that is falling off a cliff. Social media, most financial advisors do not have a social media strategy. They might have one in the back of their mind, but they haven't got one written down. So social media as a lead generation tool does not work for the overwhelming majority of financial advisors, unless you think social networking and focus on LinkedIn. And automatic referrals, this right to automatic referrals. And in many ways, you do have a right to automatic referrals. You do a great job with your clients, and, it's right and proper that these clients will refer you. But as I mentioned earlier, the vast majority of financial advisors are just scratching the surface when it comes to getting quality referrals. But something else has happened, which I'm going to explain to you in a moment, which is also severely denting the likelihood of your levels of referrals increasing. And I want to talk about that in a bit more. So let's just sum some of that up and go back a few years again. The dawn of digital, 1998 to 2010. We were starting to get our head round social networking, social media, digital marketing, trying out a few things, and we were just kind of learning the ropes. We were moving on from those old school, classic, traditional types of marketing that I was talking about earlier. One or two were using social networking, but I stress this point: forget social media and focus on social networking. We were looking at digital marketing as a wonderful new opportunity. And in the early days, it was, as I said, you could go onto Facebook 5 to 8 years ago, and Twitter as well, for that matter, and it was free marketing. But the vast majority of financial advisors were not on Facebook 5 to 8 years ago. And if they were, they certainly weren't using it for marketing. They were absolutely terrified, and understandably so, terrified of stepping on some compliance mine that would explode in their faces. So we've missed the boat when it came to free marketing on social media. Get into 2010, 2017, as I said, really easy to get followers, free engagement. You could do anything. Everybody would see your content. It was free business. And if you were even half consistent, even had half a plan during that period, people called you an influencer. And as Daniel Priestley, those of you will know, author of quite a few books, Key Person of Influence, says, using social media back then produced a good return on wasting time. And I just love that. You could waste a lot of time on social media and you would actually get business off the back of it. 2020, it was really starting to get messy. Every business is on social media. The noise levels are absolutely ridiculous. Really difficult to get attention. And the audience, we tend to use Twitter, for example. Now we're quite good at filtering it. We can follow specific hashtags, so we can actually follow what we want. We can see what we want to see in our news filters. So where we were consistently posting content, it wasn't being seen by as many people. As I mentioned, platforms are now seriously monetizing. On the previous slide, they were just starting to monetize, but these days, Facebook wants you to pay to play. And as I said, I haven't got a problem with that. If you can find a Facebook advertising expert who can take £1 of your money and turn it into £5 of income, then you've struck gold. You really have. But the vast majority of financial advisors do not want to pay to use social media. And so what we now have is a poor return on wasting time. What we do need is discipline and strategy. And that's what I'm talking about for the rest of this presentation. We're now in 2021, and it's time to get serious about our marketing and our lead generation. Things are not going as well as they could do, but there's an awful lot that we can do to make it better and to attract many more of our ideal dream clients. Does that sound appealing? Would you like more of your ideal clients? I'm sure you would. So we actually do need to have a strategy. We do need to think about it. And a marketing strategy does not need to be some 20-page document. You can actually get away with the back of an envelope job as long as you spend some time thinking about it, maybe brainstorming it with your colleagues. Actually come up with a formal marketing strategy and stick to it. Yes, tweak it as along the way, but come up with something. And here's the thing: it's a bit like using LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn strategy, and I'm more than happy to share my personal LinkedIn strategy, it gives you so much focus. It makes you focus on doing the right things rather than wasting so much time. We've got to focus on conversions. We've got our lovely looking websites, but they are just not converting at the levels they should be. So conversions is something we should be focusing on. We need to be thinking about personalizing our marketing using data. I'm going to talk much more about that. We also need to start thinking about building partnerships with industry experts and influencers. Every other industry out there works with experts, works with influencers, works with joint venture opportunities. And we do so little of that, if any of it, within the financial services world, particularly in the world of financial advice. We also need to focus on educating people. There is so much proof now that when you educate prospects, they are far more likely to want to talk to you and work with you. That's why seminars work, for goodness sake. When someone goes to a seminar, you are educating them. By definition, you are educating them. You are not selling to them, you are educating to them. And that's why you get such high conversion rates, because people get a sense of who you are. They get a sense of your expertise. They get a sense of your credibility. Okay. And so when you take the time to educate people, they respond extremely positively to that. I met, give you an example of this. I was once speaking at the Asia Pacific Financial Planning Conference in Singapore, and all of the top financial planners from the Asia Pacific region, Singapore, Malaysia, parts of India, Australia, New Zealand, they all came to this conference. I got talking to a financial planner, a guy called Robbie, and Robbie told me that he was the most successful financial planner the entire of Australia and New Zealand. And I was interested. I said to him, so what's your strategy? What's your plan? And he said, well, we work with professional introducers. And he actually said to me, and I'm not going to do the accent. He said, I know that financial advisors in the UK say that they work with professional introducers. And then he actually said, but financial advisors in the UK pay lip service to this. I thought, well, that's kind of a bit strong. Tell me more. And he said, what we do is we focus on educating accountants on how to be financial planners. Now, initially, I couldn't see the logic of that. Why would you want to educate people to be potentially your competitors? And then he answered the question in the next sentence. He said to me, accountants have had their chance to do financial advice, and they don't do financial advice. They do accounts, they do tax, they do that kind of stuff. We do financial planning. He said, but we would like them to introduce high quality clients to them. So what we do is we spend a great deal of money educating accountants in Australia and New Zealand on how to be a financial planner, what financial planners do, the disciplines, the exams, the qualifications that we need, the skills we need. We educate accountants to do this, and we spend a lot of money on it. And he said, they're really, really grateful for it. They love the CPD, if nothing else. He says, but when we have educated an accountant on what financial planning actually is, what it's all about, the quality of the leads and the inquiries that we get from them just goes through the roof. It is at another level altogether. So educating our prospects just works in a variety of different ways. And I'll give you some examples of that in a minute or two. And finally, we really need to encourage and create so much more curiosity. One of the things I see in our forums, again, is so many time and time again, financial advisors saying that clients don't really know what financial advisors do. And let me put this straight, and I apologize if I offend anyone in saying this, but the world of financial advice has made an absolute pig's ear of how it promotes itself as a valued profession. But I know deep in my heart that many financial advisors know this. Over the years, we've not really done a very good job of explaining to consumers what you do, what value they get, what financial planning actually is. So great marketing in 2021 is going to have a lot more focus on creating curiosity around what you actually do as a financial planner. And I'll explain a bit more about that as we go. So I hope you're finding this useful so far. I hope you're getting some value. We've got lots more to go. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, please feel free to drop me a line afterwards and I'll give you a link to do that. So we have a problem, lots of problems. Financial advisors are struggling to differentiate. Financial advisors are wasting leads that are right under their noses, and I'll show you where they are in a minute or two. And advisors really haven't got to grips with digital marketing just yet. And when we start looking at scorecards, we're going to see how magically we can pull all these loose ends together into a marketing tactic that, as I said, is a game changer. So, how did lead generation used to happen? And let's focus on referrals. Let's go back to the 70s again. Let's jump in our TARDIS and go back to the 1970s. And let's imagine that we're at a dinner party and we're having our fondue and we're sitting around the table, we're having a great old time. The wine tastes awful. And somebody around the table just happens to mention, pensions or personal finance or mortgages or something like that. And somebody might say, I'm looking for a financial advisor right now. I need to get my pension ducks in a row. And does anybody know a financial advisor? And someone around the table will say, well, yeah, you want to check out my financial advisor. They're absolutely great, Jones & Co. And you go, oh, well, thanks for that. It's fantastic. I'll give them a ring in the morning. And you'd write Jones & Co. down on the napkin and the phone number. And the next day you'd phone them up. That recommendation from someone sitting around the table was all you needed. You just phone them up, okay? Today, it's a little bit different. We're sitting around the table, we're all on our mobile phones, and the same conversations take place. And someone says, can anybody recommend a financial advisor? And someone else around the table says, oh, yeah, check out my financial advisor, jonesandco.com. They're great. And you go, oh, thanks for that. And you write down on the napkin, jonesandco.com. And the next day, you wouldn't phone them up. The next day, we do something else before we even consider phoning them up. We go onto the internet, don't we? Yeah, we Google them. We want to see if they've got a website. We want to see a few human things. We want to see what's their website look like? Does it look professional? What's it say on their About Us page? Do they appear to help people like me? Is there anything on their website that suggests that they can solve the problems that I've got right now? Maybe I'm a heart surgeon in West London and I'm concerned about my income in retirement. Does their website say that they look after heart surgeons? And while we're looking at their website, we, of course, will look on Google as well. We'll see who else is nearby. And, of course, what will happen is that not only will we look at Jones & Co.'s website, we'll look at Smith & Co.'s website and Williams & Co.'s website, because they're there. They're all listed on Google because they've got a half-decent website and they've done a little bit of search engine optimization. They will appear high in Google search results. So it's only natural that as human beings, we're going to look at the other websites as well. In other words, we will become distracted. Although we've been given a recommendation to talk to Jones & Co., we're also now looking at other websites as well. We're looking at other financial advisors. But here's an interesting thing. Here's the nature of the internet today, okay? It may well be that while we're on Google, we may find a YouTube channel, or we might find a blog, or we might find a podcast that addresses the issues that we are concerned about. And we might even go so far as to think, well, actually, I don't actually need to talk to any financial advisor. I'm going to subscribe to this podcast, or I'm going to subscribe to this blog or this YouTube channel. And, you've only got to talk to Pete Matthews of Jackson Financial Planning, Meaningful Money, to tell you this is exactly what happens today. So the idea that we can automatically expect a referral that somebody has given to somebody who needs our services to actually end up as a conversation with us, it's really getting creaky that way right now because the internet is distracting people and there are other alternatives to the recommendation that we've been given. The smart financial advisors are looking to own this space here, or to actually dominate this space, and to actually start using educational techniques, educational marketing that make sure that they are visible when consumers are using the internet. So this comes down to a new marketing strategy. And feel free to just copy this, use this as your marketing strategy, but build it out, work on it, make it personalized to your particular business. A strategy today, I think, that is really powerful is educational assets, a website that is highly interactive, not just a brochure, a website that personalizes people's experience, and I'm going to explain how that actually happens, and employing the concept of a value ladder, which I'm also going to explain as well. And when you see how these things work together, they are incredibly powerful financial advisors. So what do I mean by educational assets? Well, the most obvious one is write a book. Yeah. And as I mentioned, I'm mentoring several financial advisors who are writing their own books, because writing your own book will be the best business card you ever have. And I know some of you were thinking, "Oh my goodness, writing a book, that's I hear the thinking behind it, Phil, but that's a huge undertaking." Guess what? It's just like putting on a seminar. Follow the process, and it's relatively easy. Educational videos, podcasts, and indeed webinars. Those are what I would call educational assets for today's world. Your seminar program, we could include that when we're all allowed to meet once again. Now, let me show you what I mean by an educational asset that is also a marketing tool as well. So a book is an educational asset and is a marketing tool. A YouTube video, educational and an asset. Your YouTube channel is an asset of your business. Your podcast is an asset of your business. Be proud of it. Yeah, show it off. Look after it. Your webinar program is an asset of your business. So let's go back to gin. Yeah, we mentioned gin earlier on. Let's go back to this. A few months ago, I got a letter in the post during lockdown from my mother. She's in her 80s, and my father died a few years ago. As I mentioned, he was a dental surgeon, and she said that during their entire marriage of 60 plus years, he had in his bedside drawer a little book, a little leather book produced by Tanqueray Gordon's. And she said she never saw him ever read it. So he obviously acquired this, and she doesn't know where he got it from. He acquired this before they met, but she quite enjoyed looking through it. And she sent me this during lockdown. She said, out of everyone in the family, I think you're the one who would appreciate this most of all. And I mean, I was just delighted to receive this thing. And I looked inside, and look what the first thing it says inside. This little book is not intended solely as an advertisement, but has been compiled at the repeated request of many of our friends means customers, who desire to offer the proper beverages to their guests. Now, I just love this little thing, and I got in touch with the Diageo archivists. Diageo own Gordon's now, and I said, "Look, I've been given this little book. Can you tell me anything about it?" They wrote back and said, "Goodness me, you've got one of those, have you? It's 100 years old." And they said this was a little marketing piece that was available in off licenses, and the idea was to add value to existing customers of Gordon's, but also to attract new customers to Gordon's. And the way they did that was to include several dozen little gin cocktail recipes. And to me, that's just a beautiful piece of educational marketing. And with a bit of thought, all of us, whatever we do, whatever our area of expertise, we could come up with something super simple like that adds value to our existing customers, but also attracts new customers to us as well. Let's have a look at websites now. Most financial advisors don't have a website strategy. That might come over as a completely new concept, having a website strategy. Most financial advisors' websites look great, but they're overcomplicated. They are little more than an online brochure, and you have to ask the question, why would someone want to read your brochure on a screen any more than reading it on glossy paper or cardboard? Your websites do not collect data, and your websites, for the most part, are simply not converting. So I go back to that. Most financial advisors' websites are brochures, and you've got to ask the question, why would someone want to read it on the screen any more than read it on paper? You've got a great looking website, but it is not working hard enough for your business. I'm going to show how to do that. And the problem is, Most financial advisors' websites all say the same thing. You all look the same. And you're not a lookalike. You're not paid to look and behave like another brand. I can walk down any high street and one firm of accountants will look the same as another. One firm of estate agents will look the same as another. And one firm of financial advisors will look the same as another. And you might quite rightly say to me, Phil, that's not fair. We are different from Jones & Co. And I'll go, I'm sure. In fact, I know you are different from Jones & Co. But your website says the exact same thing as the financial advisor firm next door. Your LinkedIn profile says the exact same thing as every other financial advisor. Why are you looking and behaving the same as everybody else? You are not. This lady here, the lady on the left, is a professional lookalike. She is paid to look and behave like Audrey Hepburn. Providers and suppliers and big companies hire her to come on their stand at conferences and trade shows and exhibitions, and people will take a selfie with them. Yeah, she is paid to look the same. None of you guys and girls watching this today are paid to look and behave like every other financial advisor. But your websites all say the same thing. We talk about robust investment strategies. We talk about a client-focused approach. We talk about commitment to excellence in customer service, which all sounds great. But to be really quite honest, these are just tickets to the game in this day and age. This stuff does not differentiate you in any way, shape, or form. As far as I know, every financial advisor in the UK is committed to excellent customer service. Every financial advisor has got a client-focused approach. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. This does not differentiate you in any way, shape, or form. Now, I did some research on financial advisor websites, which I'm going to give you more details on in just a minute. And I noticed that they've all got the same themes. I saw a lot of financial advisors with lighthouses, and I can see why the designer might put a lighthouse. Compasses, pointing you in the right direction. We get a lot of yachts and cruises and violins and people holding green shoots in their hands. And amazing how many financial advisors' websites have got pictures of hot air balloons on them, and couples sitting on deck chairs, and older folks flying kites with their grandchildren. I don't want to over-egg this, but the themes, and I understand why you might use these themes, but they don't attract conversions. They do not attract your ideal clients. Yeah. If I'm a financial advisor and I specialize in retirement planning for heart surgeons in West London, my website should say right on the front, are you a heart surgeon in West London concerned about your income in retirement? And then maybe a picture of a heart surgeon. Yeah, that's the approach we should be taking, not this vague, woolly approach. And most financial advisors, and I really appreciate that I'm using a broad brush here, I do get that. But we do get this websites that tell us the bleeding obvious. We can figure this stuff out for ourselves. They are not particularly helpful, yeah? And this sort of stuff, our advisors will guide you to a comfortable future. Our passion is helping our clients. We are highly qualified. Again, this is all great. It sounds nice, but if I'm a heart surgeon in West London, or if I'm a senior executive in a company and I'm really starting to get my pension ducks in a row, I want to talk to an expert. I don't want to see this vague, woolly stuff. I want to see stuff that speaks to me and my problems as an individual. Okay, so let's get rid of this woolly stuff and replace it with copy and images that speak to their specific issue. And if you really do know your clients, you really do know the problems, issues, concerns, and worries that your dream clients are facing, then the wording you use on that website will be so much more focused, yeah? When somebody visits your website, they need to feel that you are their natural choice, if not the only choice for them, so that they don't get distracted and want to carry on looking around Google, yeah? When they visit your website, they need proof of your expertise, and I'm going to show you how we do that with a scorecard as well, and they need a reason to engage with you. And by that, I mean something needs to happen when they're on their website that says, I've got to pick up the phone, or I've got to send you an email, or I've got to talk to you now. Okay, that is fundamentally different from what I've been talking about. Yeah. Financial advisors' websites, they look great. I love all the hot air balloons. I love all the pictures of cruise liners. I love all the pictures of compasses. I love the pictures of you playing, of old folks playing with their grandchildren, but that's not what turns on website visitors who need your expertise. Okay. When they visit their website, they need to feel that this website has been written specifically for them. So we've got to stop thinking about website traffic. Everybody talks about, how do I get more people to visit my website, Phil? One of the biggest questions I get asked is, how do I get more website traffic? Tell you something, you don't need any more traffic to your website. You've got enough people visiting your website already. You're just not converting them into the clients and the inquiries that you really want. So how do I know this? Well, early 2019, I did some research into 100 financial advisor websites, okay? And I'm talking about financial planners, I'm talking about wealth managers, I'm talking about investment and pension advisors, life planners, lifestyle financial planners, with a smattering of purely mortgage and protection, but they really were fewer than 3%, 5%, maybe something like that. So for the most part, I'm looking at the vast majority of the financial planning world. Okay, and I looked at 100. And what I did, I asked the financial planners, can you tell me from your website stats how many people visited your website last month or on average each month? Only about 10% of those financial advisors could actually tell me that, or even knew where to get the numbers from their Google Analytics and elsewhere. But we got there in the end. And it turned out that the average number of visitors to that sample, that 100 financial advisor websites, the average number of visitors they were getting each month was 197 visitors. Some were getting a lot less, some were getting a lot more. Now, by any standards in professional services, particularly for a small business, 200 website visitors each month, it ain't bad. It's not great, but it certainly isn't awful. And it gives you enough people to play with. Now, let's just for a moment be brutal. And let's imagine that 50%, a whopping 50% of that 197 were never going to talk to you anyway. Maybe they were recruiters sussing you out, yeah? Or maybe they're just general tire kickers. Let's imagine that half of them were never going to talk to you anyway. You're still left with around about 100 people who visited your website who have not gone on to make contact with you. Ladies and gentlemen listening to this today, you need to know how many people are visiting your website, okay? It's as simple as that. Now, Google Analytics gives you way more information than you will ever need. Unless you really want to geek out on this stuff, it gives you way more information. The information you do need as basic management information, whether you own a business or whether you are a financial advisor in a business, you really ought to know this stuff, yeah? And this is the basic information you need. How many people visited last month, last week, last year, whatever? How many pages of your website did they visit? Which pages did they visit? How long did they spend on those pages? What were the terms that they typed into Google that led them to your website? Or where did they find you? Where they are. I mean, it's no good having 200 visitors that are all outside the UK. And what was the page where they finally had enough and gave up and thought, no, this isn't the financial advisor for me? And there's one other bit of information you need to know as well, and that is what's known as the bounce rate. This is the percentage of people who visit your website and then bounce straight off. In other words, they don't visit a second page. A good bounce rate for most financial advisors is about 25% or lower. So even if you lose a quarter of your website visitors who just bounce straight off, that's actually not too bad, okay? But it still leaves you with a good, decent number of people who have looked at more than one page on your website. So given that 25% or lower is reasonably good, what do you think the bounce rate was for the sample of 100 websites that I looked at? Well, it turned out to be 54%. That was the average. I saw one financial advisor's website, a financial planner in the centre of London, his bounce rate, 84%. We saw one or two around the 25% mark, but on average, it was 54%. What was the reason why the bounce rate was so high? And the simple reason is you gave them too much to click on, too many clickable links, too many calls to action, and the average number of clickable links on the home pages alone of financial advisors' websites was 34. Now, when you think about it, unless you've got quite a modern website, look at your homepage of your website and you will see that all those links that you've got, the About Us, the About You, the link to your pensions page, the link to your investment page, the link to your events page, all those pages, even your social media link, they add up to a lot. The average number of clickable links on the homepage alone was 34. And basically what that means is people are being confused. It is as simple as that. Okay. We really need to focus on our bounce rate. And, a confused mind will always say no. If you're given too many choices, too many routes, you're just going to leave. It is as simple as that. There is a reason why we do this. It goes back to when financial advisors first started having websites, back in the early days of websites, when very few financial advisors had websites. The established thinking was that your website needed to be sticky. That's what they called it, sticky. And by sticky, it meant that what you had to do was to cram as much content onto your website as possible, onto the homepage, to try and prevent people from leaving. Because back then, a website was fairly novel, so that if you had a website with lots on it, it was much more likely that people would stick around. Well, what unfortunately happened is websites today look much, much better, really high quality stuff that a lot of designers produce, but there's still too much on the homepage alone. And in all this good work that you are trying to do to attract people to your website, whether it's through social media, social networking, webinars, whatever it is you're doing, people are arriving on a website and they are met with multiple calls to action. Okay. And all that does is just confuse them. Where what you really should be doing is having copy, text on your website that speaks to the problems of your ideal dream client. And as I said, and I'll repeat this, if you know who your ideal dream client is, you will know what their problems are. So your website needs to reflect that in granular detail, okay? And having a website that just says, click here, here's our pension list, here's our mortgages page, here's our investments page, here's our lifestyle financial planning page, here's our client portal, all that stuff, it just confuses people. And it is no different from going down to the local supermarket mall and handing out leaflets in the hope that somebody might actually be of interest, okay? There's even some science behind this. It's known as Hick's Law. And it applies in all sorts of different, when we are given too many options, too many decisions to make, it dramatically increases the time taken to actually make a decision. So there's real proof behind this. The more links on the homepage of your website, the longer it will take people to make up their mind and to decide. It will really slow them down. And quite a lot of people will just say, there's too much here, I'm off. Okay, and there are some other factors as well. It's worth looking it up. There are other factors. For example, the older someone is, the more confused they get. And I know a lot of financial advisors do. They focus on people at the older end of the scale. So there's all sorts of factors. So there's real science behind this. There's that if your website's got too many links on it, it dramatically increases the likelihood that people will not engage with your website. Okay. But in summary on this bit, you are getting visitors to your website, okay? It's as simple as that. You just check your website numbers and you will see. And even if you're only getting 10 visitors a month, well, that does suggest that perhaps you're not getting the message out there enough about your website. But if you're getting the average number of visitors that I talked about earlier, then that is more than sufficient. You have leads right under your nose, okay? Websites are little more than brochures, and advisor websites are not engaging and they're not converting. And when we talk about scorecards as we move forward, I'll show you how we can just literally transform that. So just literally a couple of quick tips to get more website conversions. Real quick tips here. Let's move away from green shoots, hot air balloons, and compasses on our website. Yeah, remove content and just focus in on your target market. Yeah, Write your website for your dream client. Aim that high, okay? If you write it for your dream client, when they arrive on your website, and they will feel that your website is speaking to them. And even people who are not quite your dream client, they will kind of aspire to that, yeah? You really ought to have some sort of lead magnet. I know that's a dreadful salesy expression, but you really do need to have some sort of download that people can get. You know, if I'm let's say again, my target market is heart surgeons in West London. When a heart surgeon in West London arrives on my website, one of the first things they need to see is give us your email address, and you can download straight away our 20 tips for heart surgeons to increase their retirement in West London. Simple stuff like that. That's a lead magnet. It works. Trust me. You really ought to have client video testimonials. You know, if you really do want content on your website, client video testimonials are so ridiculously powerful. It's not true, because people buy people. If we can see another human being saying, I worked with Jones & Co., they really treated me nicely, they didn't talk down to me, they feel like a family friend now, that is human stuff. That's what people really, really buy into. So you've got to have client testimonials if you possibly can, yeah? Know your numbers. It is crucial that you know how many people are visiting your website, so you can see data behind your website as well. And most important of all, you need to encourage engagement. You want to try and put things on there that really do encourage people to actually physically engage with your website. So if you look at one of my websites, if you look at the homepage of my website there, you can see just there, it says, how did you hear about us? And there's a little drop down. It says LinkedIn, social media, podcast, whatever. I'm not really that bothered how people found out, heard about me. The only reason I put that on my website is to encourage people to physically engage with my website. And again, there is science behind this. And there is proof that when people actually take a micro step, a micro commitment, in engaging with your website, it dramatically increases the likelihood that they will stick around for longer and they will want to get in touch with you afterwards. So just something that will get people to engage with you. And guess what? A scorecard is what will help people to engage with your website, and it will dramatically increase the likelihood that they will want to talk to you later. Google Analytics is a fantastic tool. If you feel a bit overwhelmed by what Google Analytics gives you, there's another tool called Clicky, which just gives you those basic numbers there. Take a screenshot of this particular picture, go to that link there, and I think it's free as well. And it just gives you the basic information. It gives you a tiny bit of code that you need to drop into your website. If you don't know how to do that, your kids will do it for you. Don't worry, super easy. Yeah. Another tool that I use as well, because I'm fairly fanatical about the data behind my website, is a tool called Hotjar that is also free as well. And it gives me little heat maps. It shows me the bits where people are actually clicking. Whereabouts on the page are they actually clicking? It also gives me a little video of people moving around my website. It shows me their mouse movements, so I can see which bits people are mostly looking at, and the bits that they're not looking at, I take them off, okay? Because I don't want them being confused. I don't want too much data on there. So to sum up this bit, your website should do one of two things. It should either add value to existing clients, or it should convert new visitors. It is not a brochure, okay? It should not try to do both those things. Time and time again, many of those financial advisor websites, those 100 websites that I looked at, they had a client portal. You may well have a client portal. That's not the right place. You really want to have two websites, and I realize you're now starting to think, oh, this is going to start getting expensive. Do you know, in this day and age, having a website is super cheap to do. Either set your website up for existing clients and work on them and work on attracting more referrals, or focus your website on attracting new visitors, but do it in a way that people can actually interact with it and they can feel when they visit your website that this is for them, okay, and you are the only choice in the world for them. Focus on converting new visitors, but focus on converting the right visitors. I know for a fact that none of you want any old Tom, Dick, or Harry. As a client, you want the right clients, provide real value, give a personalized experience, and find ways to create opportunities to start conversations, and a scorecard will do that. Okay. I mentioned that personalization is something else that we should be thinking about as part of our strategy. And when you personalize your marketing activities, it is amazing how responsive people will be, and you get real data through that. And it makes your website work harder and smarter. By personalizing people's experience on your website, it gets leads through education value. And by personalizing, you are addressing specific visitors' problems, questions, challenges, and pain. Now, what do I mean by personalization? Let me think of an example. Well, any of you who have ever used Amazon more than once, you buy something on Amazon, the next time you visit Amazon, they're making suggestions based on your previous purchase. Now, the vast majority of financial advisors could never afford to have the kind of technology that is sitting behind Amazon. But scorecards can actually help you to do this at an absolute fraction of that kind of investment. Now, why is personalization important? When I was working for Zurich, when I was head of national accounts, I was responsible for part of our marketing budget, which meant that I interacted and engaged with a lot of advertising agencies. So advertising agencies tried to get my attention. And one particular day, this arrived in the post. It looks like a shaving mirror that someone's written in the sort of steam. Phil Calvert, you change your toothbrush when it's worn out, so why not your agency? Now, this was done by airbrush. This was long before we had the sort of technology that we have today. And another one I received, another advertising agency sent me a picture of an attractive young lady, and they had put my name on it. Do you think that got my attention? Of course it got my attention. Here, look, you can have a closer look. This was done by hand. There was no Photoshop involved back then. This was done by hand. So personalization really does make a difference. A few years ago, I was selling my house, and I went around all the local estate agents, and guess what? They all looked the same. They all said exactly the same thing. They all promised me the best possible service. They all promised me their best. And I went around 5 or 6 estate agents, and at the end of the day, I had no idea which one to go for. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to think on this, and I slept on it overnight. The next day, my post arrived, and in the post, when I opened the envelope, was a piece of red carpet, which I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder who sent me this. Red carpet, okay? What do you normally associate with red carpet? Well, I turned it over, and one of those estate agents had put this: Phil, all our clients get the same treatment. Call us today, we'll roll up our sleeves and roll out the red carpet to achieve the results you want. And they'd handwritten my name on it. Do you think that got my attention? Do you think they were the ones that got my business? Of course they were. Of course they were. How simple is that? And I throw that little marketing idea out to you. When we get out of lockdown, head down to your local carpet outlet and buy up a few square yards of red carpet, chop it up into 10 by 8 inch pieces, and stick a label like that on the back and send them to every single one of your clients. Super cheap, super easy, super effective. That's what I mean by getting people's attention with personalized marketing. So whatever marketing you do needs to point people towards your value ladder. And your value ladder, well, let's explain it. The purpose of a value ladder is to make it easier to start conversations and to build relationships with prospects and clients. What do I mean by a value ladder? Well, let's look at another professional service. Let's look at dentists, okay? What dentists really want in this day and age is for you to pay for pretty expensive cosmetic surgery, yeah? Or they want you to enroll in an ongoing subscription plan. Okay, that's where the real profits are in this day and age. But if all they said on their website was, come to us for all your cosmetic dentistry needs, most of us know that cosmetic dentistry is pretty expensive. So, we're going to be pretty cautious. So what most and we're going to want some pretty good referrals for that matter as well. So what most dentists will do now is have what's called a value ladder, where they will entice you in by offering you, say, free teeth cleaning, or slightly higher value, free teeth whitening. Teeth whitening these days, still comes with a price attached, but a few dentists, they will run a little campaign, maybe for a month, where they'll give you free teeth cleaning, free teeth whitening. The idea is just to get you in the building, just to experience your service, just to get a sense of what you are. And when they've done the work, they'll ask for a video testimonial, which will go onto their website. I happen to think that financial planning is one of those services that many, many people, they just don't get it. Yeah, they don't really understand it until they've experienced it. And that's why a webinar, and that's why a seminar, and that's why writing an article give people the opportunity to step onto your value ladder as a financial advisor and get a sense of your expertise. So that it becomes much more likely that, having experienced the great service you offer, that they will go further up the value ladder and eventually engage you for, the full financial planning experience. In today's internet world, to put that you are a financial planner on your website is pretty meaningless, to be quite honest. People don't really understand what it is. So they need some sort of sense, some sort of proof of what you do, some sort of evidence of your expertise. So I really want you to start thinking about this concept of a value ladder as a financial advisor. Dentists do it, other professionals do it. We should be doing it as well. Let's look at another one, a chiropractor, for example. And a typical value ladder for a chiropractor will look something like this. A free consultation, a free massage maybe. What they really want you to do, is to spend a lot of money on their 3-day high-end wellness retreat at a really fancy 5-star hotel, which starts on a Friday with lots of really nice food, maybe some guest speakers about wellness and health and well-being. That's what they want you to spend the money on, okay? But what they do is they offer free stuff or very low price stuff to get you in so that you can experience their expertise for themselves. What about the value ladder for a gym? What do you think that is? The value ladder for a gym actually starts on one particular day of the year, doesn't it? January the 1st. They get you in, they offer you free trial, but what they actually want you to do is to pay for an ongoing subscription, something like that, personal coaching, but they get you in for free so that you can experience the place for yourself, so that you think, oh yeah, I've got to do it. And then, they make you an offer. That's how value ladders work. But it is amazing how few financial advisors actually have a value ladder. But here's the thing, value ladders work. And they work in this day and age because a referral, a recommendation alone is not enough. People need to get some sense of who you are before they want to commit further. Now, this is my value ladder for financial advisors. What I really want people to do is to come on my high-end weekend retreat, where we take a deep dive on financial planning, marketing, 3 days at a really nice hotel, sometimes in the UK, sometimes overseas, really nice food, perhaps a celebrity chef, a couple of expert speakers come on board. I mean, that's really expensive. And if all my website said was, I do weekend retreats for financial advisors and they cost this amount of money, no one's going to take it up. What people need to do is to get a sense of me, what I do, the services I offer, before they even remotely start thinking about the high-end stuff, yeah? So I offer free services down the bottom. The things in green are free. Many of you are in my Facebook group or my marketing group. That's free. But my goodness, the value in there is amazing. And I put barely any of the value in myself. You guys, you're the financial advisors. You put the value in there. There is nothing that a financial advisor could ask about how to be successful as a financial planner or to build a business as a financial planner that can't be answered in that particular group. So ultra high value, but free. And I might occasionally offer a free ebook or a free guide. My scorecard. Some of you have actually seen my personal scorecard. I'll show you a couple of screenshots later on. That's free to take. The things in blue might be free, they might be chargeable. So a webinar like this one today, it's free, but hopefully I'm giving you lots of value. A book, I might give away some free books. or you might pay for them on Amazon. The things in black are always chargeable. But what we're doing is we're gradually ascending the value ladder. The value is getting higher, the price is going up as well. But to encourage people to work with me at a higher level, I need to do the groundwork below by having a value ladder with a very clear path that people can follow. So what about value ladder for a financial advisor? Well, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but you could include some or any of these or all these. I would generally recommend 3 of these things, maybe 4 of these things, an e-guide. Remember I gave the example earlier, heart surgeon arrives on my website and it says download our free guide to help heart surgeon increase their income in retirement. Any of you could do that. An e-guide needs only be 1 page, 5 pages, 10 pages, really easy to do. Maybe a little tips book, an ebook, yes, your own book, an audio book, gradually working up so that people come into your world, they get to know you, get to like you, get to trust you, so that it becomes a very natural thing to work with you at a much higher level. And examples of financial advisors that already do this, Martin Bamford, he's written at least 3 books. These are his value ladder. You don't make a whole lot of money out of writing a book as a financial planner. You can create a nice little stream of royalties that come in through Amazon every single month. But the real money for Martin is in what these books say to clients and prospects about him. Okay. As I said, it's the best business card you'll ever have. Catherine Morgan. Many of you know Catherine, rising star in the world of financial planning, particularly in financial coaching, focusing on particularly on women and their money. And she puts on, a free 5-day challenge to help you identify what kind of relationship you have with money, unlock self-limiting beliefs, and so on and so forth. I saw her doing one only today, earlier today, before our internet went down. Pete Matthew, he's kind of the master of this. He's the one that we all look up to. He's got his podcast. He's got his YouTube channel. These are high value educational pieces of content. There's no financial advice in here. There's no financial promotions in here. It's all educational content. But it says to people, Pete's great. I'm buying into him as a person. I'm buying into his expertise. I'm buying into his credibility. I want to work with Pete. Okay. That's how a value ladder works. And we will see how scorecards fit into that in just a minute. So let's get back into our time machine and go to 1988. 10 years in, I'd been a broker rep, an inspector for 10 years at this particular point. Kylie's I Should Be So Lucky was one of the top tunes back in 1988. Die Hard was one of the big films of 1998. But it was also a year that I met a financial advisor by the name of Mick. He was on my patch in southwest London, just off. He actually worked from Weybridge. He worked from his house in St George's Hill in Weybridge. Now, any of you know St George's Hill, Weybridge, you will know that it is a private gated community where the rich and famous live. Mick's next door neighbour was Cliff Richard. Okay. And so Mick was a one-man band. I say one-man band, him and his assistant. And so he was doing pretty well. And he actually described himself to me as a jobbing broker. But he mostly did pensions for business owners in southwest London. He worked with business owners. He worked with quite a few printing companies as well. He worked with the owners of a printing company. They would naturally tell other friends in the printing world, Mick's the man to work with, he'll help you. But Mick always worked hard he would also say to them, look, we've worked together. Would it be possible if I could do a presentation to your staff, to your employees? And they would always say yes. So he would put on lunchtime and tea time worksite presentations. Some of you will be familiar with that term, worksite presentations. And he put on like a 20-minute, 30-minute presentations, usually on protection. He used to sell a lot of PHI back in the day, a lot of family income benefit, and a lot of life cover as well. And he did that predominantly through seminars and worksite presentations. It was not uncommon for him to come home every day with 30, 40 proposal forms every single day. Yeah, not uncommon at all. But he would say to me, seminars is a no-brainer, as I've kind of explained earlier. But the real key was the simplest of props. And he would have a little pre-printed 6x4-inch postcard, which asked some very simple questions. And he would give one of these to every single person in the audience, and he called it Mick's 1 Minute Money Quiz, which sounds a bit cheesy, but we're talking 1988 here, and it worked for him. And he would collect the postcards afterwards, and when he got home, he would send a personalized follow-up based on the answers to the questions to every single person. And this was pretty well, I can't remember the exact questions, but from memory, these were broadly speaking the questions that he asked on the postcard. And the questions were, do you save regularly? How often do you worry about money? Are you likely to receive an inheritance? Who is the main breadwinner? And how much would your family have if you or your spouse died today? He reckoned that about 80 to 90% of the people in the audiences would give him the card back there and then. So think about that. Yeah, he's done a presentation because it's a seminar. People are getting to know him, get to like him, get to understand him, get to see a sense of his expertise. Okay, and they would answer his questions, and they would, in the process, give him what? Yeah, they would give him data. They would give him information which he could take back to his home in St. George's Hill in Weybridge, and he could write a letter to each and every person and reply with, if you like, with a little report based on your answers to your questions. These are my observations. He wouldn't give financial advice, and he wouldn't try and sell them anything. He would just say, really appreciate you coming to the seminar today. Thanks for asking the questions. Based on your answers to the questions, these are my observations. Now, what do you think would happen next? In the letter, he would say, I'd love to have the opportunity of having a quick phone call with you. Please either phone back or I'll give you a call at some point. And he said the take-up rate for people after receiving his little follow-up letter was absolutely phenomenal. Again, high 80s%, because he had taken the trouble to follow up the data, follow up the information. So this thing was working at two levels. It was working at the first level. He was putting on a seminar, which, as I said, they just work. But because he was collecting data and information from the attendees and following it up with a personalized report, he dramatically increased the likelihood that they would become prospects and clients. That was his secret weapon, and he used that for years and years and years earlier. And if I go back to my value ladder, you will see the scorecard written on there. That is my primary marketing tool that I use today, because I collect data from people and then I give people a personalized report which follows them up, and it dramatically increases the likelihood of them wanting to talk to me. Okay, so let's just sum that bit up. The new marketing strategy based around educational assets, websites that interact and engage with people at a human level, websites that give us the ability to personalize their experience, either there and then or with a follow-up, and using the concept of a value ladder. Now let's put my value ladder on a little chart and just tick a few boxes as to see where they fit into strategy and whether or not they're free or chargeable. So, as I mentioned earlier, the free stuff down the bottom, the webinar on the books are free and chargeable, the coaching calls, the weekend retreat, the coaching is all chargeable. What strategy boxes do they tick as well? And you can see, let's take the weekend retreat. That's the top end of the value ladder, and it's educational. Yeah, the 12-month coaching, that's on the value ladder, it's educational and it's personalized. If we go down the bottom, my Facebook group, it's on my value ladder, it's educational and it's web-based. Okay, ebooks and e-guides, they're on the value ladder and they're educational. But let's look at my scorecard. It is the only one that ticks all four of the new strategy. My scorecard is on the value ladder. It's free. It's an educational tool as well. You'll see how that is in a second. It's web-based and it is personalized as well. It is almost like the holy grail of marketing activities, and you'll see why as we go. So A scorecard is an assessment tool. It gives you data and it gives you the opportunity to get much, much better leads. It works on the basis of massive curiosity. It is a tool that enables people who visit your website or your scorecard to benchmark themselves. Human beings just love to benchmark themselves. It gives them an instant assessment of their situation. And in their mind, they can compare their situation with other people that they know, or they can compare themselves against some sort of standard. And I'll explain what I mean by that as well. It enables them to acknowledge that they might be weak in some areas of their financial planning, but also give them something to aspire to, give them the opportunity to aspire to improve, ideally with your help, ideally personalized help and through a personalized plan. Human beings love to benchmark themselves. I'll lay any money that most of you listening to this today have at some point taken some sort of quiz or a survey online that gives them a score and gives them a score at the end and maybe a bit of an observation afterwards. That is what a scorecard does, but human beings absolutely love to do them. Now, up until very, very recently, this has really not been possible for financial advisors unless you are an absolute whiz with spreadsheets. Okay, I know a couple of financial advisors who've created something similar with a spreadsheet. But what you've got here is the online equivalent of Mix Postcard, okay? Through answering a series of simple yes, no, and multiple choice questions, your website visitors are instantly given a personalized report of valuable insight based on their answers. So, what's a scorecard? It's a simple, attractive website survey page. You can embed it into your website, or it can be a separate one-page website in its own right. Your survey asks simple questions that ask for yes, no, or multiple choice questions. Based on the answers to those questions, they get an instant score, and they're taken to a web page that makes observations about their score. They can also have a report emailed to them as well. That then gives them the opportunity to think, okay, I've got my score. Perhaps I need to be talking to Jones & Co. About how to improve my score. And what's more, this whole thing is GDPR compliant as well. What you've got here is a marketing tool, one simple tool that will potentially do all your marketing for you. Do you remember I said to you earlier, you are already getting leads to your website? You're just not converting them? What this tool does is encourages people in a very positive way to engage with your website at a very personal level so that they can benchmark themselves against something they care about and get a score. In exchange for that, you get the answers to their questions, okay? So what it does for financial advisors, it improves the effectiveness of your marketing by putting value at its heart. It turns your website into something of real value from just being a brochure. It creates deep curiosity. It encourages visitors to genuinely engage with your site and to hang around for much, much longer. It gives you highly qualified, data-rich leads, and it personalizes your contact by understanding each person. Or in other words, you can personalize your follow-up contact by understanding each prospect. And I go back to Mix Postcard Money Quiz. Yeah, people answered simple questions. He got the answers, which gave him the opportunity to follow them up in a highly personalized way. It is so, so powerful. And this is why I describe this as a game changer. It can be a part of your value ladder. It turns your website into something that actually works. It gives you leads that are high quality and, more importantly, highly qualified. And I say high quality because not everybody who takes your scorecard will be a client that you want. So you can actually look at the answers, in other words, look at the data, and you can identify the good leads, the bad leads, and the ugly leads. In fact, you can pick and choose the people you actually want to follow up personally. The people that you don't want to follow up, you just add them to your newsletter list or to your webinar list, or maybe you even invite them to talk to another advisor. It's entirely up to you. It enables you to personalize your approach, and it positions you as an expert, if not the expert. So all this means is the quality of the conversations you're going to be able to have now that you've access to rich data will be literally game changing. And I use that expression again. The financial advisors that I'm working with on scorecards, one of the first observations they have is that by having that data, in other words, the answers to the questions, it puts them in a position to be so much better prepared when they first talk to the client. Now, you think of the current way that you get leads at the moment, whether it's through your website. Maybe you're getting leads through a website. Maybe it's through a referral from an existing client. Maybe it's a recommendation from a local accountant. Those leads come in, but the amount of information that you get is really quite light. Maybe an accountant has sent you a lead and said, John or Sue, I've recommended you to Fred Smith, who owns his own business down the road. He's looking for a financial advisor. He'd love to talk to you. That's all the data you get for the most part through the traditional lead generation technique. What you have through a scorecard is a completely different level of data, enabling you to prepare and follow up their inquiry in a completely different way from before. Now, this also, your scorecard is also an asset of your business, and therefore you need to show it off. You need to be proud of it. One of the problems with financial advisor websites now is we sit back and we expect it to do all the work for us. And to some extent it does, okay, because it's out there, it's on the internet. But if you want your website to get more visitors, you need to actually promote it. So although it's a marketing tool in its own right, you need to market and promote it as well. Your scorecard is as well. Your scorecard is a marketing tool in its own right, but it's also an asset of your business, and you should promote it. So don't just let your website, your scorecard sit there. I mean, you can if you want, okay? It will convert more of your website visitors, guaranteed, okay? But if you want more people to go through your scorecard, so you're in an even better position to pick and choose who you want to work with, you need to promote it. So promote it on your website. Have a big button. So take our scorecard. Take our scorecard for heart surgeons who are concerned about their income in retirement. Yeah. Put a link to your scorecard in your email signature. Put a link to it in your out of office email. Mention it in your answer phone message. Sorry, we're not here right now. The office is closed for the weekend, but please visit our website, take a look at our scorecard, and I'll show you some names in a minute. Promote it on a LinkedIn profile. Include it in LinkedIn messages when you're talking to people. Promote it on your social media, yeah? When you're advertising and your other places where you promote your business, put it in there. Include it in your blogs and articles. All these things here are potential places where you can promote your scorecard. As I said, you are already getting people visiting your website. You can increase that level by promoting your scorecard in a variety of different places. It is an asset. I don't make any apologies for repeating that ad nauseum. But it also has other uses as well. You could actually use your scorecard as part of your onboarding process. It's not there to replace your fact find, but it could complement your fact find as well. The data that you get from people answering the questions on your scorecard is just mind-blowing and will give you all sorts of data and facts that you could use in newsletters, webinars, and other stuff that you put out. If you are going to do targeted advertising on Facebook and elsewhere, the data that you get will help to inform the targeting of your advertising. It's obviously, I've already mentioned, it gives you great data for following up on other communications. You can also segment the data that you get through your scorecard as well, so that you can offer other services that you might have. And if nothing else, it builds your mailing list as well. Now, your scorecard needs to have a name, and we're going to come on to that in just a moment. But the most important thing is that it has a theme. And the theme, the higher, the better the theme, the higher the value perception and the stronger pulling power it has. So, for example, Let's use the heart surgeon example again. If you're a financial advisor specializing in helping heart surgeons with retirement income, your theme could be retirement planning for heart surgeons. Okay, quite easy. It's not rocket science. So typical themes could be readiness for retirement, work-life balance, clarity around money, entrepreneurial instincts, financial fitness, attitude to wealth, saver mindset, investment sophistication, and protection. Those are sort of typical themes, and there'll be more themes, and you might already be able to think of a theme that might work for your client. But really the starting point is to think about, okay, what sort of ideal dream clients am I trying to attract to my business? And based on what you know about those ideal dream clients, you'll think, well, actually, a theme based on this is probably the right way to go. Yeah. Other scorecards in other industries, there's one called the Entrepreneur Identifier. Which leading entrepreneur are you most similar to in business? Take the scorecard, find out now. Tax refund calculator. Are you one of the many UK companies who pays more tax than they need to? Take our scorecard and find out. You see, people are benchmarking themselves when they take a scorecard. The business clarity scorecard. Do you know your next 6 moves to ensure your business grows over the next 12 months? If not, our scorecard will tell you. The brand assessment. Does your target market like and trust your business? Find out in 2 minutes. So you're beginning to see where you go with this. So one of the things that I do is LinkedIn consultancy, particularly with financial advisors. And so I use a scorecard to attract leads to me. Now, I could just have a website that says, my name's Phil Calvert. I've been using LinkedIn since the day it started. I know a reasonable bit about LinkedIn. Hire me and I'll help you to improve your LinkedIn profile. Now, that's fine up to a point. But I now use a scorecard for all the reasons I've been talking about, okay, to prove that I've got some credibility in this area. So what I've got is the Financial Advisor LinkedIn Health Check. And this is a screenshot of it. Financial advisors, IFAs and financial discover your LinkedIn strengths and weaknesses with our free LinkedIn Health Check. Take our online test to learn how to attract more of your ideal customers, okay? Take the test now. And that goes straight into my scorecard series of questions, okay? And the homepage, a couple more screenshots from it, a bit of content, a few pretty images as well on there as well. Answer the questions, get your report, take action, consider your next steps. Okay. Now, within my scorecard, the theme is LinkedIn and how to do it better, but I have categories of questions. So I ask questions about people's strategy. I have questions about their profile, strategies about how you use LinkedIn to communicate with people, how you network, the content you post, your business, and other LinkedIn features. So I've got a theme, LinkedIn lead generation. I've got categories of questions, which are based around various aspects of LinkedIn, and I've got the questions themselves. And here's just some of the questions. And as you can see, they are designed to get simple yes, no, or not sure answers, or they ask for multiple choice questions. So a question I might ask is, do you have a LinkedIn strategy? Okay, and I will give a score to their answer. The software gives a score. And I want to reward people for being on the case, as it were. So if you've got a LinkedIn strategy, you should get more points than someone who doesn't have a LinkedIn strategy. Do you have a personalized LinkedIn URL? Yes, no, not sure. If you've got a personalized LinkedIn URL, you're going to get more points than someone who doesn't. Have you completed this section? Have you completed that section? And the questions on the page actually look like this. What have you included in your experience section on LinkedIn? Places I've worked plus text, and so on and so forth. And they answer the questions, and behind the scenes, the software is applying a score to that, okay? And the people who are really on top of their game on LinkedIn are going to get a higher score at the end than the people who are not on top of their game. And when they finally click the last question, and you want to ask between 20 and 40 questions, something like that. They are taken to a page, something like this. So it says, thanks for taking the Financial Advisor LinkedIn Health Check. And they've scored 32%, which is kind of middling. Okay. Now, when you first create your score, your scorecard, what you inevitably find is the results come out quite low. Now, what we actually want is people to feel that they're doing okay, but they could do better. What we don't want them to feel is there's no hope. Okay, even with the best financial advisor in the world, even with the best LinkedIn trainer in the world, if their score is too low, they may get dejected. They'll be disappointed, and they'll think, "Oh, there's no hope," and they don't bother. They show no further interest. So, part of the setup is to get the scoring logic right, so that people who are on top of their game with their financial planning or their LinkedIn, whatever it is that you're measuring, actually get a score where they think, "Okay, that's my score," but there's always room for improvement. But as they scroll down, it gives them a score based on how they answered questions in each of the categories that I did. So this person here has done pretty badly on their LinkedIn strategy, but they've done not too bad at all on their profile. And you'll notice that there's some script, there's some text there, and that text is dynamically created depending on the score they get. So if this you apply to a financial planner, they wouldn't be getting financial advice. What the tool would be doing is giving them observations that we have pre-written, okay, based on their situation. And if you want it, you can have the system send them a PDF of this as a report as well. So a dynamically created report based on their score. And at the end, you can say thank you for taking your scorecard, give them a free download or a free gift, free anything, maybe an Amazon voucher. Maybe you could say at this point, you could have a free hour-long consultation with one of our financial planners. Just click here to make an appointment, schedule it through a Calendly link or something like that. So what I do at the end of mine to say thank you to people, I say, thanks for taking it. Hope you found it useful. Click here to get a free PDF copy of my book. Okay. So they've got their score. They've got their report. They've got high value. They've got a sense of your expertise as a financial advisor. You've got their name, the answers to their questions, their scores, and a whole bunch of data. Isn't that amazing? Do you remember I said to you right at the beginning, would you like to know the names and financial details of everyone who visits your websites? Well, when people take your scorecard, that's exactly what you get. This has never been done before. This is going to change lead generation and turn lead generation for financial advisors into a so much more professional activity that is so much more strategic, so much more relevant to today's clients. And now you may not be able to see this very well, but you get a dashboard as well, and it shows you the answers to their questions. So that question there, do you have a LinkedIn strategy? At the top, their answer was not sure, and it took them 19 seconds to think about it. Have you identified your perfect dream client and can describe them in detail? Their answer was no, and it took them 21 seconds to think about it. It's important that people get through the scorecard quickly. We don't want to ask questions that are too complicated or too difficult, or that they have to actually go and look up. Okay. So in the early days of your scorecard, you want to run it by a few friends, a few clients that you're really friendly with, and say, look, this is something new. Have a go, see what your score comes out. Love to have a chat with you afterwards. And so you can just get a sense, and you can tweak the questions so that people can answer them much, much quicker. So you've got amazing data, and that means you can then follow them up. You can send them an email. You can get on the phone. However you normally follow up your leads, you've probably already got a process, okay? Use that process, or even come up with a new process for doing this. But you can, in its most basic form, you can say, Mary, thanks for taking your scorecard. You did really well in this particular category. Not so strong on this category. Is that something you're interested in? You'd like to work on? Can we help you with that? You kind of see where I'm going with this? You've got the data. They've got some value. You've got the opportunity to personalize your follow-up. Okay. But it doesn't end there, okay? So they've got value, they've got a score, they've managed to benchmark themselves, they've got a free report. But there's more to it than just that. It's not just a lead generation tool, this for financial advisors. You could use the data that is coming through your scorecard to train your staff. You can say, particularly to new staff, you can say, look, these are the sort of ways people typically answer the questions. It's useful for them to know this and to understand this. You could even use your scorecard in some aspects of recruitment. You could actually create a scorecard just for recruitment. I've spoken to financial advisors in the past who've often told me that they don't really get on with recruiters because recruiters never really quite come up with candidates who fit their style, their ethos, their philosophy. Okay, so you could actually create a scorecard just for recruitment. Okay, that asks candidates questions, and you can tell from answers to their questions whether or not they're the sort of person you want to follow up. You could create a scorecard in collaboration with a professional introducer or with another business partner, a joint venture, like I mentioned earlier. This becomes very much part of your brand's assets. I said it's an asset of your business. It builds your proposition. You could also invite your clients to take your scorecard, not just once when they first come into your world, but every year. And just out of curiosity, track their thinking, track their progress, for want of a better word, as well. It's part of your annual service you can offer people. You could also use it as a proactive referral generating tool as well. Actually say to your existing clients, please tell your friends. Yeah, we love it that you tell your friends about us, but please tell them about our scorecard. Get them to take the scorecard, get their score, and they're guaranteed to find it of interest. Now, I was talking to a financial advisor only a couple of days ago. I'm building a scorecard for him. And he said, Phil, I hadn't really thought about this. And I hadn't thought about this either. He said, at some point I want to exit my business or sell my business when the consolidators come along. He said, I've just realized that if I've got a scorecard, not only will they see that I've got my own built-in marketing engine, but I've got serious data. And, people who buy financial advice businesses, they're interested in data. So he said, I believe that this could potentially enhance the value of my business when I come to sell or exit the business. And I personally hadn't thought of that. And so I put that in this presentation today. You don't have to call it a scorecard. You can call it an assessment, a calculator, an analysis, a quiz, an identifier, a health check. And, here's just some names that you could use: your financial fitness scorecard, your readiness for retirement scorecard, retirement clarity scorecard, wealth clarity report, money instincts health check. We're only limited by our own imaginations as to what we call this, but what we call it, the name will be based upon the theme. Okay, so again, if using the heart surgeon example, I could call it the heart surgeon's retirement planning scorecard, something like that, So, does this stuff actually work? One of the things you'll notice on my value ladder is I do webinars, okay? I fall over myself to do webinars, either for or on behalf of people, or I put on my own webinars like I'm doing right now, okay? Now, I just want to give you one example. I did a webinar on marketing for Schroders Personal Wealth a couple of months ago, and they hired me to do an hour and a half long marketing webinar, marketing tips, lead generation ideas for financial advisors. But I was particularly focusing on using LinkedIn. And I made the point that I made earlier in this presentation that LinkedIn really is a no-brainer. You've got to learn it. And I gave them a few LinkedIn tips. And at the end of my webinar, I said, look, would you like to have an instant personal assessment of how you, as a financial advisor at Schroders Personal Wealth, would you like to know how well you are using LinkedIn? If you would, visit my LinkedIn health check that I've just shown you, and take it, and you'll get a score and you'll get a free ebook at the end. Okay, and I finished my webinar. I gave them a link to the scorecard at the end. Client was happy. I felt that it had gone quite well. I turned off my microphone and my camera. And I thought, right, that's great. And I went to get a cup of coffee. And when I came back to my desk, to my email inbox, within 10 minutes of me finishing the webinar, I had 97 people had taken my LinkedIn health check, and that is potentially 97 leads. Now, here's the point. There's no way that I can service 97 people. So what I do is I go through the data, I go through their individual score results, and I pick and choose the ones that I feel I could potentially add the most value to. Some people's scores will be, with the best will in the world, will be so low that there isn't a hope in hell's chance that I can help them. I can help them, but I just know, they're not really the client that I want to work with. Okay. There are some people who will score really well. Maybe they're really doing quite well with LinkedIn at the moment, and I can follow them up, but I know they're the sort of people who will be looking for advanced training. The people in the middle, I know they're the sort of people who are most likely to say, I can go back to them and say, look, you did quite well on your LinkedIn strategy. You've got a few areas for improvement, and I can help you with that. Would you be interested in a one-to-one 90-minute consultation where I'll work personally on your profile? And the vast majority of those will take them up. So I've got all these leads that come through. I can add them all to my email newsletter list or my webinar list, okay? But I can pick and choose the ones that I really want to work with. And I see this is the real value for financial advisors, yeah? This is where the real value for financial advisors is because you will get people going through it, but you'll be able to pick and choose the people that you want to work with. So to sum up, by having a scorecard as a financial advisor, instant value for your website visitors, yeah? Instant. They get a personalized report based on their personal situation. For them, that whole experience of going through the scorecard will hopefully be a positive one for them. Receiving your report and analysis, it'll also be fun for them as well, and will be proof of your expertise. It will produce leads for you, enabling you to choose who you want to follow up. It will help you to understand each prospect literally as an individual person. You'll be able to follow them up with personalized messaging. And, this can be automated. You can have the leads hook up with your CRM system, and you can have your CRM system automatically send follow-up messages. That's entirely up to you. But you, again, go back to Mick. Remember, he got his postcards and he sent a letter to every single person in a personalized way, and he'd handwrite their name on it as well. And what you really end up with as a financial advisor is no more reliance on marketing that isn't working or that's running out of steam or that isn't really relevant for today's marketplace. This is really professional. It's in a whole different league from what we've done before. It's what we need right now to add value to people who genuinely need financial advisors' experiences. So what it is, a scorecard is a branded landing page, yeah? It'll have your logo on it. It'll have your colors. It can be built to look the same as your website. You choose your question categories based around your area of expertise. You ask questions. You have a scoring logic behind it. People opt in. That's why it's GDPR compliant. They take the test, they take the survey, they take the scorecard. It gives them results with dynamic content. They can have a PDF as well if you want to give them that. You can integrate it with your CRM system. You can give them a personalized follow-up. And what this is really leading to is proper, robust relationships that you can build on as time goes by. And everybody wins from this. This isn't just a lead gen tool that we're using right now. They get real value from this, and you get real data from it. So would a scorecard be right for your financial advice business? There are two ways to find out. Take my scorecard that will assess whether or not it will be right for you. I've got a scorecard. Go to philipcalvert.com, New Era Marketing, and I have built a scorecard so you can experience this thing in action, and it will look at your marketing that you currently do as a financial advisor, and it will give you a score, and it will give you a report, and it will tell you the likelihood of whether this is right for you right now, or whether it's not right for you right now, or whether some tweaks to your marketing approach right now would make it more likely that something like this would work for you. Because this isn't for everyone. I'll be clear and honest about this. Isn't for everyone. That's why I've built a scorecard. So either take my scorecard, or if you don't want to do that and just want to have a no obligation call with me, just go to my Calendly link there right now, stick it in my diary, and we can have a chat about whether or not it worked for you. Now, with your permission, I just want to take the last minute to give you some idea of pricing. Now, you can build this, you can do this yourself. You can go to the Scorecard software. The pro version, you can have 10 scorecards. It's going to cost you £195 a month plus VAT. Okay. There's a cheaper version at £95 a month where you can have 3 scorecards a month. But the one I recommend for financial advisors, if you want to do it yourself, is just £25 a month and plus VAT. So that's 30 quid a month. You have just one scorecard. Most financial advisors only need one scorecard. Okay. It's GDPR compliant. You can see the features and benefits in there as well. Now, I can say to you, you can build this yourself, but it will take you time, particularly getting the design of it right, particularly getting the scoring logic right. The alternative, and which is what I'm doing for multiple financial advisors at the moment, is I'll do it for you. And I'll plan your objectives. We'll have a couple of calls, plan your objectives and theme, create your categories, decide your questions. I've got a whole bank of questions, ready-made questions, ready to go, which you can go through, pick and choose the questions you want, add your own, take some out. I'll do the score logic for you, do your results page. You'll get instant notification of leads when they come through, weekly update during the build, and we'll work on the follow-up strategy that you should have. However, for those of you watching this today, I reckon that a discount is in order. And I can only do 5 of these over the next month. If that's something that you'd like to do and you want to be one of the 5, I can do that for you for £597 plus your £25 a month for the software. Okay, £597 if you want to be one of the 5 that I can do. I can only do 5 each month, no more than that. But if you want to be in the next 5, it'll be that. After that, the price has to go up. If you'd like more information, I promised that you could have a guide on this. You can either, I've written a whole book on this. Go to Amazon and get the book, and it's everything you've heard today and a bit more. Or right now, send an email to philip@financialadvice.marketing, and I'll send you a 28-page guide which broadly sums up everything I've spoken about today. So we're there. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you found it of interest. As I said, please feel free to drop me a line if you have any questions, because I would love to hear from you. I said at the beginning that I would use the words game-changing quite a lot, and I hope I have lived up to that promise today. Thank you so much for listening today. Very much appreciated, and I'm really looking forward to talking to some of you very soon. Thanks a lot. So there we have it, scorecard marketing. Wow. I hope you're as excited about it as I am. As I said several times, I believe this is an absolute game changer if you're a financial advisor looking for just a few more of your ideal clients. I know you don't want leads shoveled into your business. You want quality, and a scorecard will produce that quality for you. So thanks again. Really appreciate your time. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Thanks a lot.